Welcome to Lead Well, Live Whole. I'm your host, Michael Sirmon. Every episode, we'll spend a few minutes exploring the challenges, questions, and realities of everyday life, because success means little if you lose yourself in the process. So take a breath, settle in, and let's spend a few minutes exploring life together. If you've been following along this season, we've been on a journey together. We started off by talking about clarity and how high performers often lose it without realizing it. Then we talked about the hidden costs that come with carrying too much for too long, and about identity and what happens when the person in the mirror no longer looks like the person you once hoped to become. We talked about having the courage to say no, and last week we talked about what happens after you say no. What happens when you finally establish a boundary? What happens when you finally stop saying yes to everything and everyone? Welcome back to Lead Well, Live Whole. I'm Michael Sirmon. Today I want to talk about something most people never expect, the empty calendar problem. Because something strange happens when we finally create space in our lives. The thing we thought would make us feel better often makes us feel uncomfortable first. And if you've experienced that, you're not alone. Most of us spend years saying the same things. If I could just get through this season. If I could just get caught up. If I just had a little more breathing room. Oh man, if I could just get a weekend to myself. If I could just get one thing off my plate. Often we convince ourselves that the answer is just more time, more margin, or more space, and sometimes it is, but then something interesting happens. The project ends, the kids move out, promotion comes, the crisis passes, the schedule finally opens up, and instead of feeling peaceful, we feel restless. Instead of feeling relieved, we feel uneasy. Instead of enjoying the quiet, we start looking for something else to fill it. Have you ever noticed that? I know when Tammy and I first started saying no and clearing space on our calendar, we felt guilty. We felt bored. We felt as though we were supposed to be doing something, but we didn't know what it was, so we started getting a little antsy. And, when that happens, we finally get that free evening and immediately we start scrolling. We get a free weekend and we suddenly feel guilty for not doing something productive. We finally create margin and immediately begin filling it with new commitments. But why do we do this? Because many of us have become so accustomed to noise that silence is unfamiliar. And unfamiliar often feels uncomfortable. And for many years, I believe my schedule was simply a reflection of responsibility, and part of it was. Leadership does come with responsibility. Family comes with responsibility. In fact, life comes with responsibility. But if I'm honest, there were seasons when busyness became something more. It became proof that I was needed, that I was valuable, that I mattered. And the busier I was, the more important I felt. And honestly, I don't think I'm alone. I think we live in a culture that celebrates exhaustion. People wear busy like it's a badge of honor. Things have been crazy. I haven't stopped all week. I barely have time to breathe. I work through my lunch. I'm working 14 hours a day. And everybody just nods at us as though that's a sign of success. But eventually we have to ask ourselves a difficult question. If my value disappears when my calendar emptied, was my value ever really tied to my work? Or was I simply using activity to validate my worth? And that's a tough question, but it's one worth asking. The truth is that most people don't fear rest. They fear what rest reveals. When life slows down, the questions get louder. Questions that we've been avoiding, questions we've been outrunning, questions buried beneath meetings, beneath projects, behind deadlines, and distractions. We have to ask ourselves questions like, am I really happy? Am I fulfilled in just being me? Am I fulfilled in my relationships? Or is this actually the life I want? Because who am I when nobody really needs something from me? And my favorite question was, what have I sacrificed to get where I am? What am I grieving? Right? We often think grief and the grieving process is only associated with when we lose a loved one or someone we care about, but it's also when a transition happens in our life, when we leave a job to start a new job, when we leave a relationship to start a new relationship. Right? There's a grieving process we have to go through. Even if we're excited about a change and excited about where we're going, there's still that rendering of what was behind us. And we owe that time, we owe that space for the grief to play out. We have to ask ourselves, what am I avoiding by trying to keep my calendar so full? I mean, and those questions, honestly, they don't usually show up when life is moving at full speed. They start showing up when everything finally starts getting quiet. And that's the reason most people immediately create new chaos after escaping the old chaos. Not because we enjoy stress, but because stress is familiar. Noise is familiar. Motion is familiar. And stillness requires honesty. And honesty, frankly, can be very uncomfortable. I mean, I've seen this happen with leaders. I've seen it happen with parents, with retirees. I've seen it happen with me and my wife. I've seen it happen with people who finally achieve the goal they've spent years chasing. They get there. We get there. And instead of feeling complete, we're confused because we discover the goal was never supposed to carry the weight of our identity. That promotion was never going to fix loneliness. Achievement wasn't going to create purpose, or for me, in my case, achievement wasn't going to create my identity. I mean, I've told you, for years, I chased positions. I chased the titles. I chased the boards I could be on and the teams I could coach because I was trying to establish my identity, which I never got established when I was a child. So for me, I was looking for that achievement to create my purpose. But you know what? The paycheck, no matter how big it is never going to heal wounds. A packed calendar is never going to create peace. Now, those things may be meaningful, but they make horrible foundations because eventually every season is going to change. And when it does, we're left facing the same question. Who am I when all of this is removed? Now, that may sound strange, but you know what? I don't think margin is the reward. I think margin is the opportunity. Many people work incredibly hard to create space. Then they immediately feel it. Another commitment, another project, another obligation, another distraction. What if the purpose of the space wasn't for the space to be filled? What if the purpose was for the space to be explored? What if the quiet was trying to teach us something? What if the discomfort wasn't a sign that something is wrong? What if it's actually a sign that something important is surfacing? Because growth doesn't always happen in motion. Sometimes growth happens in reflection. Sometimes healing happens in silence. Sometimes clarity only arrives after the noise leaves. You know, one of the hardest skills I've learned is simply sitting with a question. Not rushing to solve it, not distracting myself from it, not immediately creating a plan, just sitting with it. And that's one of the hardest lessons I had to learn when I started, my coaching business, was sometimes just sit with it. When the collaborative process reveals that tension point, don't immediately jump with the solution, even if I think I know what the solution is, because the solution has to be their solution. And sometimes that silence, that quiet needs to be there so that they have a chance to explore in that space that was created by the silence. So it's not about rushing to solve an issue, and it's not about distracting ourselves from it, and it's not about immediately creating a plan to fill the gap now that's open in our calendar. It's just sitting with it. I often tell people, step back, breathe, pause for a minute. Selah, pause. It's a wholly expectant pause, but it's quiet so you can hear your own voice, hear your own thoughts. Because sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come when we stop trying so hard to manufacture answers. We create a little room. We get quiet. We listen. We pray. We reflect. And over time, things begin to emerge. Often not all at once, but little by little. The next step becomes more clear. The next conversation becomes obvious. The next priority reveals itself, not because we forced it, but because we finally made space for it. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with 3 questions. Not for your team, not for your organization, not for your spouse, not for your family, but for you. Question number 1, what am I feeling right now? Not what am I thinking, what am I feeling? Because those are often very different answers. Question number 2, what have I been avoiding? Most of us already know. The answer usually appears faster than we'd like. And question number 3, what matters most right now? Right now. Not 5 years from now, not 10 years from now, right now. this season, this moment. What matters most? If you worked hard to create space in your life, don't rush to fill it. Let it breathe. Sit with it. Learn from it. Pay attention to what surfaces. Because sometimes the very thing we've been searching for isn't found in the next achievement. It's found in the quiet that follows it. The space you've created may feel uncomfortable at first, but that's okay, because growth often does feel uncomfortable. But if you'll stay there long enough, you may discover something you've been missing for a very long time. Not another task, not another goal, not another obligation. You may actually rediscover yourself. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me today. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who may be struggling to slow down after a season of caring too much. And if you're finding value in these conversations, I'd appreciate it if you'd take a moment to follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. It helps more people discover the podcast and ensures you never miss a future episode as we continue exploring what it means to lead well and live whole. So until next time, lead well, live whole.